My name is Maya and I'm 22 years old. You might be wondering how a girl my age ends up living with her uncle, especially given what I'm about to tell you. Honestly, I never imagined this would happen either. I'm studying graphic design, and most of my time is spent drawing, designing, and doing freelance work. Life has been a challenge ever since my parents divorced when I was younger. I moved around a lot trying to find stability. Eventually, I ended up staying with my Uncle David. It wasn't part of the plan. Make sure to subscribe to my channel so I can continue bringing you more fascinating true stories like this. And don't forget to watch this video till the end and like the video because this story is going to be incredibly nourished. Please hit the like button to show your support. It all started when my mom had to go away for work and it needed somewhere to stay. While finishing college, David, my uncle, was the only family member who could help. He's been married to his wife Clara for a few. Now they live in a beautiful house in a coastal town far from the city. I thought it would just be an temporary move to a quiet place. But things didn't turn out how I expected. A few months later, I had adjusted to the house, the routine, and the peaceful. So I thought, but today something happened, something I need to share. It started when I walked into David's room while he was asleep. But before I explain, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can stay updated with the rest of this story. Let me tell you a little about David Heisnat. Like most uncles to me, he's always been more of a mentor than a family member. Growing up, he taught me how to ride a bike, fix things around the house, and even bought me my first car when I turned 18. So when my mom needed someone to take me in, David was the obvious choice. He's thoughtful, patient, and very kind. But it wasn't just him. I was moving in with his wife. Clara had been in the picture for a while. They married 2 years ago, and at first I wasn't too sure about her. She's older than David, and something about her made me feel like an outsider in their home. Initially, I stayed in the guest room at the far end of the house, trying not to intrude. Over time, things became less awkward and Clara started giving me advice on cooking, cleaning, and household matters. Eyes weren't best friends, but it wasn't as tense as it was before. I thought things were getting better, but recently, I've noticed something I can't explain. The more time I spent with David, the more felt drawn to him. His smiles, the occasional touch of his hand, and the way he would look at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. It felt different. I couldn't ignore it. A tension between us began to build, an energy that was impossible to escape. I know what you're thinking, Maya. What are you talking about? He's your uncle? It sounds crazy. I know, but this connection is undeniable. I tried to brush it off, telling myself it was in my head. But every time we were alone, the atmosphere felt charged, as if something was pulling. Gustaga. Here's where things get interesting. One evening after dinner, I was working on a project in my room when I heard footsteps in the hallway. David had been napping for hours, and Clara was out with friends. We were ill. I didn't think much of it at first, but then I heard the door to his bedroom creak open. I froze for a second, unsure whether to leave him to rest or go inside, but something pulled me toward him quietly. I opened the door, trying not to disturb him. He was lying on his back, an arm behind his head, looking peaceful as he slept. The light from the window cast soft shadows over his face, making him look almost untouchable. I stood there for a moment, me heart racing. I could feel my face flush, my pulse quicken. I'd never felt this way before. Maybe I just wanted to look at them, or maybe it was something more. I didn't know. My thoughts were interrupted, and I accidentally knocked over a vasener. His bed. The sound made David stir. His eyes opened, and for a brief momento like a Jesus, there was confusion in his eyes, but something else too, something he couldn't quite name. He blinked a few times, trying to focus on me, then let out a groggy laugh. Maya, what are you doing, Gar? He asked, his voice thick with sleep. My heart was racing as I struggled to find the right words. I didn't want to look like I was snooping, but I didn't know how to explain myself. My mouth went dry. I didn't mean to wake you, I stammered, feeling embarrassed. David sat up slowly, rubbing his eyes. He smiled at me, the same patient smile he always gave, but today there was something different in his face, something that made my heart race. He studied me for a moment before speaking again. It's okay, he said gently. You know you can always talk. Tom, Maya, I'm here for you. I nodded, but my mind was spinning. I didn't know how to deal with this strange feeling. The room felt heavy, and I could feel my breath coming faster. I just wanted to talk, I whispered. David's smile faded just a little, and I saw a brief hesitation in his eyes before it vanished. He patted the bed next to him. Come here, then you can always talk to him, he said warmly. I stood there for a moment, unsure, but something inside me pushed me forward. Without thinking, I sat next to him. The tension between us was thick, heavier than ever I could feel. The head of his body next to mine, his cologne, filling the air. We were so closey that I could hear his breathing and feel the rise and fall of his chest. With each breath my heart raced again, and slowly, almost in slow motion, he looked up at him. Our faces were so closey that I could feel his warmth, his gaze, soft, unsure, but there was something else, a spark that made my skin tingle. Maya, are you okay? David asked gently. Before I could answer, I leaned in closer to him. My pulse was racing, and my breath caught in my chest. I couldn't explain it. Beautiful everything felt so intense, as though fear itself was charged. David didn't pull away his eye, shelled mine with quiet intensity. He didn't speak, but his breath quickened, mirroring mine. The room felt warmer, the silence between us deepened with unspoken words. My mind was in a whirlwind. Everything had led to this moment. I couldn't stop myself. Slowly, I leaned in, my lips trembling as if I were in a dream. They brushed against his. At first it was uncertain, tentative, but then, as his lips met mine, soft and gentle, I couldn't stop myself. My mind screamed for me to stop, but my body refused. I needed this. I wanted this. David's hand cupped my cheek, urging me closer. His other hand rested side us, grazing my skin. I could feel the heat of his touch. The kiss depended on. Soon it was hard to tell where his lips ended and mine began. The rest of the world disappeared. It was just that po of us caught in this undeniable connection. My mind raced with confusion, guilt, but also with a strange sense of rightness. What were we doing? Why did it feel so necessary? There were no words to explain it, no logic behind it. He pulled away for just a moment, his forehead resting against mine, our breathing washivi, each breath shaky and slow. I could feel his pulse against my skin, matching the rapid beat of my own heart. Maya, his voice was soft, stringed with something deeper. We shouldn't, but I wasn't sure. I agreed. Something inside me refused to acknowledge any reason to stop. Slowly, I reached for his hand, intertwining my fingers with his head. Pull away. His fingers curled around mine, holding on to me just as thickly as I was holding on to him. Our eyes met, and for a long moment we didn't speak. The weight of everything hung between us. Should we could my hand instinctively moved to the of his neck, pulling him closer. I kissed him again. This time there was no hesitation, no fear, just the overwhelming need to stay close to him, to feel his presence. David's hand slid down my back, drawing me closer. The contact of our bodies made everything feel incredibly intense. I didn't know where this was heading, but I didn't care. I wanted to stay in this moment where only the two of us existed. Me heart pounded in my chest as his lips moved to my neck, pressing soft kisses against my skin. I could feel his breath against my ear, sending a shiver down my spine. It was unlike anything I had ever felt, bare, intimate, consuming, and deeply wrong, yet thrilling in a way I couldn't explain. You're sure about this? Hammer mewed against my skin, his voice thick with, I don't want to hurt you. I closed my eyes, trying to find my voice. Of everything inside me screamed to stop, topple away, but I couldn't. The longing was too strong, the need too powerful. Didn't want to question anymore, didn't want to question anything. I just wanted to be with him, I'm sure. I whispered, my hands moving over his chest, feeling the warmth of his skin beneath my fingertips. I want this. David, I want. Yahweh's lips found mine again, and this time its kiss was deeper, more urgent. There was no turning back now. The world outside of this room didn't matter. There was only the way he made me feel, desperate, needed, and alive in a way I had never experienced before. The room seemed to close in around us, the light dimming as the intensity of our connection grew. Every touch, every kiss felt like a premise of something more, something neither of us fully understood, but were both ready to explore. I could feel his heartbeat steady against mine, syncing with the rhythm of my own, and even though part of me stood against the reality of what was upon, a much larger part of me completely, it wasn't just kissing a no more. It was more than that. It was a connection I couldn't explain, a bond that went beyond words. I've wanted this for so long. David whispered, his breath warm against my lips, could barely comprehend his words. My hands roamed over him, feeling the muscles beneath his skin, the heat of him. Way he responded to me, but there was no turning back now. There was only Thepple between us, drawing us closer in a way neither of us had expected. Time seemed to stand still as we lost ourselves in each other, in the quiet rhythm of our kisses, the warmth of our touches, and for the first time everything felt right in the stillness of the room. We were no longer just uncleaned knees. We were two people bound by deeper, something more intense than anything I had ever known. The air between David and me hung thick with tension, neither of us moving, neither of us speaking. The silence was suddenly shattered by the sound of the front door opening down. We froze. My heart raced, and he quickly pulled away from David, panic flooding my chest. What had we just done? What was happening between us? The guilt washed over me, but it was mingled with something else, desire I couldn't ignore. I felt trapped between the moment we had just shared and the reality that we were entangled in something we couldn't easily undo. David didn't move right away. His eyes were locked on mine. Booth's expression was unreadably. Could feel the heat between us, the lingering closeness that hadn't yet dissipated. Maya, he whispered, his voice strained before he could say anything more. The sound of footsteps echoed upstairs. David heard a voice, immediately recognized. My heart sank. It was Clara. I quickly jumped off the bed, my breath quick and shallow. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced in every direction, but I couldn't think of a way out. Off this was I really going to face her after what had just happened? The door to David's room creaked open, and there she was, Clara, standing in the doorway, surprise writ over her face. Her eyes flickered between David and me, confusion crossing her features as she took in the scene. Maya, David, what's going on here? She asked, her voice uncertain. But there was something else, intuition maybe, that told her something was. I could feel the blood drain from my face. Clara's presence was like a bucket of cold water, and in that moment everything felt wrong. There was no way to explain this, no way to justify what had just happened between David and me. My throat tightened as I struggled to find words. I stammered, unsure of what to say. David, now sitting on the bed, looked just as lost. His hand rubbed the back of his neck, clearly embarrassed, unsure how to explain it. Clara's gaze moved from him to me, and through was an unspoken, understanding buttons. It was as if in that single moment everything shifted. Clara knew something had happened, something that shouldn't have, but her reaction wasn't what I expected. Instead of anger or disappointment, there was only a deep sadness in her eyes. She stepped into the room, closing the door behind her. Her presence was commanding, and the room fell into an odd tense silence, like the calm before a storm. Maya, you need to understand something, Clara said gently, her voice softer than I anticipated. There's more to this than you realize, more than either of you understand. I looked at her, confusion flooding my mind. What did she mean? What more was there? Silence lingered even after her words hung in the air, leaving a mark on both of us. Despite all the confusion, her calm understanding and offer of guidance gave me something unique. Stepped. Clara wasn't angry. She didn't cast us as a deed. Instead, she gave us a chance that felt fragile and uncertain. Boot steel Thea. I glanced at David. His face was a mixture of guilt and confusion and something else I couldn't quite identify. He was avoiding my gaze, his shins nervously rubbing together. I knew he felt the weight of what had happened, way our worlds had collided unexpectedly. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that none of this was anyone's plan. Things had unfolded beyond our control. What I knew for sure was that we couldn't ignore it. We couldn't pretend like nothing had happened. Clara was right about that. Feelings and confusion, everything had to be addressed. I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. What do we do now? David looked at me, his eyes full of a mix of emotions. I don't know, Maya. I don't know what to feel, what to think. I don't know if I should be angry, ashamed, or if I'm even allowed to feel anything at all. His voice cracked, revealing the internal struggle in his words. He was torn between the deep connection we had shared and his loyalty to Clara, his wife. The situation couldn't be solved in a conversation. It wasn't that simple. I took a deep breath and walked toward him, closing the distance between us. I wanted to reach out to him to comfort him, but I wasn't sure if that was the right thing to do. I didn't know what was right anymore. Don't think we'll figure everything out right now, I said softly, but I think we need to talk, to be honest with each other. This is too complicated, Tonya. David nodded slowly, his expression serious but not angry. Yeah, I know. I don't know where to start. He took his hand, the touch buffed and charged with unspoken emotion. We start by admitting what we felt, what we still feel, and then we figure out what comes next. He nodded again, his expression softening just a little. It's not going to be easy, Maya, but I want to understand what's happening between us. I squeezed his hand, contact both comforting and filled with unspoken emotions. I don't have all the answers, David. I don't know what happens next, but I'm not running from this no more. We sat in silence for a moment, both lost in thought, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Yet there was no clear way forward, no easy answers. The emotions, the confusion, it was all overwhelming, but what Clara had offered us was a lifeline, the space to face everything together, to confront themes as we had found ourselves in. I looked at David again, and for the first time, I felt that no matter what happened next, would face it with honesty. There was no perfect solution, no simple way to fix things, but there was hope for understanding and healing, and maybe even for something more. As I sat back, my thoughts racing with all the possibilities, I couldn't help but think of Clara and what she had said. Her calmness and her offer of understanding opened up a door I didn't even know existed. She hadn't rejected us, she hadn't condemned us. Instead, she had given us room to breathe, room to process what had happened. But what would happen next, though? Would things unfold if we admitted the depth of what we still felt? Could we move forward, or would the weight of it all be too much? But those were questions for another time. Right now, it was just David and me, sitting together in the silence of our shared uncertainty. We both knew nothing would ever be the same again. The only thing we could do was to take the next step, whatever that might be, and somehow together we would figure it